solutions of Let's start with the topic numerical solutions of equations. This is a very easy topic. The steps and the calculations involved are very easy, and there is just very little concept that you need to understand regarding this. We'll take a very easy example of a quadratic to understand the concept, and obviously we'll be using it to solve the equations where the equations cannot be normally solved. Like for example, equation, it has an algebraic and a trigonometric part. Equations that have algebraic and exponential parts both. So those are the kinds of equations which we cannot solve normally. Hence we refer to this particular method that we'll be studying in numerical solution of equations. Again, taking an example of quadratic to understand this, and then we'll go through the entire method for the remaining questions. Now we know this is a quadratic equation. What is root of a quadratic equation? The values where the entire quadratic becomes equal to 0. So I'm calling this a function of x. This is a function of x, which is x squared plus 5x plus 1. And I am trying to search for the root. Again, I'll ask you, search for the root. Root is the value where this entire quadratic becomes equal to 0. Is this right or wrong? Okay. Now let's try to search for the root. And I'm telling you that the root is negative. So, the question will either give you a hint, or it will connect you to a previous part where it will tell you the range where the root will lie. You'll either use a graph for it, or the question will provide you with a certain range, and then you will try to find the values where the root will lie. So again, I'm trying to search for the root, and in this question, I'm telling you that the root is negative. So you plug in the value of -2. When you plug in the value of -2, in the entire function, the value that you get is -5. Okay. Then you plug in the value of -3. You again get it as -5. Then you plug in the value of -4. You get it as -3. And then you plug in the value of -5 and you get it as a +1. What does it tell you? Again, the root were the values which were supposed to make this entire thing 0. Very good. The values that will make the entire thing 0 is between -4 and -5. How do we know that? Because when we plug in the value of -4, we get the entire thing as -3. And when we plug in -5, we get the entire thing as +1. So that means a value between -4 and -5 is what will make this entire value 0. That is all we can predict from these trials. Okay. If I plug in the value of -4.5, I get it as -1.25. And I already know that at -5, this will again become positive. So gradually, I am concentrating on my roots. I'm narrowing down the range in between which the root lies, right? So now I can say that my root lies between -4.5 and -5. Now I'll say if I plug in -4.6, I get it as negative. -4.7, I get it as negative. -4.8, I get it as positive. Now I'll say that the root lies between -4.8 and -4.7. So this is the first thing that we will study in this topic, is figuring out a range in between in which your root will lie. Is this clear to everyone till this point? We make the entire function equal to 0. And then we'll call it a function of x or whatever variable is involved. And then we will plug in the values and figure out the range in between, the range in which my root will lie. Is this clear? Clear, class?
Yes, sir.
Now, this is my equation that I'm supposed to solve. Again, what is the root of this equation, sir? The values which will make this entire thing equal to 0, right? Let's rearrange this. I take this 5x plus 1 over there, -5x minus 1. and I take the root of this entire thing, and again because I know that my root is negative, so मैंने इस root के बाहर negative लगा दिया. Now what do I call the root of this equation? The root of this equation is the value of x that you plug in and the same value of x that you get as a result. Again, what was the root of this equation? Sir, x की वो value जिसको आप डालें, it makes this entire thing 0. सही है. अब मैंने इसको change कर दिया ना. Now I say कि x की वो value जो मैं यहाँ plug in करूँ और वही value मेरी as an answer आ जाए. Isn't it the root of this equation? Is this clear? सही है. So this value of x, I call it the input value, and this value of x for the timing we'll calling it the output value. And we'll be using multiple inputs. So naming all those inputs, we are calling it xn, and we are calling it xn plus 1. And there is a reason for it. And I'll tell you, don't worry. For example, if the first value of x that I'm plugging in, we can either call it x1 or x0. I'm calling the first value x0. So the result that I'll get is x1. So automatically in my next trial, I'll be plugging in x1. So the first trial is what I decide on my own. And the next trial, I'll automatically get it as an answer to the first trial. फिर जब मैं x1 plug in करूंगा, so I'll be getting x2, and that will be my next input. Is this clear? Obviously, x, the first trial is what we decide from the initial range that we have established. Any query, any problem till this point, please feel free to let me know. कोई मसला है? Okay, class. Before moving on, let's understand some basic calculator operations. Please observe. Mostly, the trials want you to give these trials, and these results are called iterations. So the iterations are mostly required up to 4 or 5 decimal places as per the question. And then the roots are required up to 2 decimal places. That is just a norm that is followed by A levels. It may vary from level to level. So what do? You don't want to use your brain to rounding things off, right? Once you are using a calculator, you just use it smartly. So how do you do that? You go to setup, you press shift, and this mode key, you go to setup. And then there is a button for fix. You press fix, and you tell the calculator to fix all your values up to a certain decimal places. I want all my iterations to be correct to 4 decimal places. So I've pressed 4. Do that to your calculator. So the calculator gives you all the answers correct to 4 decimal places. So you don't have to put your mind to rounding things off. You get the rounded off values, and the calculator just keeps on giving you all the iterations. Go to setup. Select fix. I'll repeat. Go to setup. Select fix. 6 पे fix है. And then जितने भी decimal places you need, select the appropriate decimal places. In this one, I need 4. Is this clear, class?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So just keeping in mind, sometimes the question provides us with the first value that we are supposed to plug in, and then the next one we do it on our own. How are we supposed to do it? Observe now. For example, we are taking this thing into account that we know that our root is between -4 and -5. This is the range that we are starting with. And now we eventually want to get to the final root. So what is the smarter way to start? The smarter way is to start from right in between -4 and -5. And how do you use your calculator smartly? You just plug in the value of minus 4.5 minus 4.5, and then you press an equal to. This is your first input, and now you want your calculator to take every other answer and make it the input of the next formula. So you put the entire formula in the calculator. How? You'll say that I need a negative root of minus 5 times the answer and minus 1. So the first value, which I am calling in this case x naught, is minus 4.5. And this will yield me x1, which will be my next input. So once I press equal to, my calculator will give me x1 correct to 4 decimal places. Now, the only thing that you are supposed to do is note down these iterations. Everything is being done by the calculator. You are supposed to smartly use the calculator, make the entire formula in the calculator, and then use the iterations and note down the iterations appropriately. This is your x1. Now, once you press the equal to again, calculator will take this as your input and it will provide you with x2. So before just constantly repeatedly pressing x2, kindly note down the iterations. And till when are we supposed to carry on with this? जब तक हमारा input हमारे output के बराबर ना हो जाए. In short, we get two same values for our iterations. Is this right? Is this right? That is what you're supposed to do. इसको note down करो and then you just press equal to. This is your x2. But the only thing that you're supposed to do is note these down. x2 आ गया, x3, x4, x5, x6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 12 and 13. The 12th and the 13th iterations are the same, and that is when you stop. And you'll say, okay, whatever these two iterations are same. And what will be your final root? I just told you it will be specified in the question. The final root is mostly noted down correct to 2 decimal places depending on the question, not a rule, but that is just the general pattern that we have observed in areas. So what will be the final root? The final answer is minus 4.79. So we are supposed to smartly use the calculator. Okay, class. Let's have a look at this question first. May, June 2004, paper 3. Okay, the question says, I hope all of you are noting things down. If there is any issue, any problem till now, please feel free to let me know. Is this clear? Now, the question has provided us with an equation and it says that it's a cubic equation. It has one real root. Now, the question says, show by calculation that this root lies between -1 and 0. The question is already telling you the range in between in which the root lies. How will you do it? You're only supposed to focus on the method. You make this entire thing a function of x. Then you plug in a -1 and you see your output. Then you plug in a 0 and you see your output. Your outputs should just change the sign. One of the output must be negative, the other one must be positive, which will help you conclude the fact that the root lies between the two values. Is this the case, class? With -1, you get -1. With 0, you get +1. Now, the important part is that one of them is negative and the other one is positive. And the root is the value which will make this entire thing 0. Sir, एक -1 हो रही है, एक +1 हो रही है. तो 0 इन दोनों के बीच की कोई input है which will make this entire thing 0. This entire function as 0. Abhi, this is the first part. No, don't rush, Heather. Please observe. Part 2, show that if a sequence of values is given by the iterative formula. Now, the question has provided us with the iterative formula, and we'll be only using the iterative formula in the third part. The second part, we'll be proving that this iterative formula is the same as this equation. And how are we supposed to do it? Again, in the formula, we separate the x. कि सर एक x n हो गया, which will be the input, और दूसरा x output हो गया. But when an equation is formed, उसमें तो कोई x separate नहीं होता. Both of them are x, right? C को manipulate करते हैं इस तरीके से कि that one of the x is the subject and one of them is the input, right? But जो equation होती है उसमें तो कोई subject वगैरह नहीं होता हमारे पास. All of them are just x. So forget about this n plus 1 and n. And you either manipulate this equation to form this one, or you take this equation and manipulate it to form the formula. दोनों में से कोई भी एक काम कर लो. This one is easier. Take this formula xn plus 1 or xn हटा दो. Just use all of them as x and manipulate it to prove that this and this equation are the same thing. Do it. Just forget about n plus 1 and n. Use it as x is equals to 2x cubed minus 1 upon 3x square plus 1. And simplify it and get this answer. You have to prove that this formula was derived from the same equation. No, you just cross multiply it. And I'm telling you, this is a formula and you manipulate it and show that this formula came from the same equation for which we proved that the roots lie between -1 and 0. Done, class? Done?
Yes, sir.
Prove? Okay. So technically you figured out you don't have to make the formula on your own. The question, as it always, has provided you with the iterative formula. And now you'll just be using the iterative formula to get to your answer. Now the question is telling you that what is the first value that you're supposed to plug in? What is it? Minus. The root has to be provided correct to 2 decimal places, showing results of each iteration. And now I heard the question has not told you, because there's a very old question. In the recent one, it tells you how your significance of your iterations. So I'm telling you, write all your iterations correct to 4 decimal places. And I've told you how do you use a calculator to do this. सबसे पहले write -0.5 in your calculator and put an equal to. Even before that, मैं दोबारा बता दूं, go to setup, select fix, and then select 4 because you want all your answers to be correct to 4 decimal places. Do that. Once done, just put -0.5 in your calculator and put an equal to sign. That's it. That's it. Done? Done? Now, just make this entire formula in your calculator. 2 bracket answer cube -1. I'll show it to you again. Yeah, I'll show you. Just put -0.5 -0.5 and you put equal to. And now make this entire formula 2 answer cube -1 divided by 3 answer squared plus 1. Now you carefully press the equal to button because you must make sure you write down all the iteration. So if the question has provided you with x1, this is your x1, you'll get your x2. What is your x2? Don't write the exact value. -0.7143. This is your x2. At least show one iteration. पहली value plug in करके दिखाया करो. Show one iteration and then carry on. बाकी फिर direct you can write down the iteration. This is x2. You press equal to. You get your x3 and then x4 and x5. So yes, you get your x4 and your x5. Please be very careful. At least show one iteration. एक iteration जरूर ये step दिखाया करो एक. And then you can write all the iterations. Once you get your x4 and x5 same, what is your root? Minus 0.68. Is this clear, class?
Yes, sir.
Okay, class. This one involves some sketching. Cosec x. By sketching a suitable pair of graphs, show that the equation, again in this one, what will we do? We are not doing it right now because that is not our focus. We'll sketch the graph of cosec x, and we'll sketch, which will be a curve, and we'll sketch the graph of line half x plus 1, which will be a straight line for the domain 0 to half pi. And we'll see that in this domain, these two equations just intersect on 1 point, right? So we'll know that in radians that this has, the root lies between 0 and half pi, right? There is just one root between 0 and half pi. Now the question says verify by calculation that this root lies between 0.5 and 1. पहला part तो हमारा है, हम बाद में करेंगे, not our focus right now. How do we do this now? Anyone? We'll bring all of them on one side and make the entire equation equal to 0. That is the very important thing that we need to do. हम इस पूरे को equal to 0 कर देंगे. Now we will say that the root is the value which makes this entire thing 0. Up we can use the logic of positive and negative, right? We could not have done it in the way that the equation was provided in the question. अब हम कहेंगे root is the value which makes this entire thing 0. We'll make this entire a function of x. We'll convert it into this form so that we can put it in the calculator. Now we'll plug in 0.5 and see our output, and we'll plug in 1 and see our output. Make sure that your calculator is in radians. Again, the values are not of much use to us. The only thing we'll have to see is that with one input, we get the entire function positive, and with the other, we get the entire function negative. So that means pura function 0 kab hoga? In between these two inputs. Is this clear, class?
Yes, sir.
Now the question says show that this root also satisfies the equation this. The question is telling you कि वो जो equation मैंने दी थी वो हो या ये हो, दोनों एक ही equation है. That is what we need to prove. Prove करके बताओ. You either manipulate this one into the one provided in the question, or you take the equation provided in the question and convert it into this form. दोनों में से एक काम करो, जो भी ज़्यादा better लग रहा है. I'll advise you to start with this one and manipulate it to get the equation that is given in the question. It's your choice, whichever you feel is easier for you. Is this clear, class? Done. This is just a 1-mark question. It's very easy. You could have just taken this sine inverse over there. It will become sine x is equals to 2 upon x plus 2, right? And reciprocate both sides. Sine x is equals to 2 upon x plus 2. You reciprocate both sides. You will get cosec x is equals to x plus 2 upon 2. And then you write the numbers separately with the same denominator. That will be half x plus 1. Is this clear, class? Or should I show you people how to do this step by step? Part 3. Is this clear or not?
Yes, sir. Clear.
Good. What about the rest?
Clear, sir.
Good. Just take the sine inverse on the other side. Done. Okay. Now the question says it has provided you with an iterative formula again, and you have already proven that this iterative formula is just a manipulative form of the same equation that we started with. And now it has given you the first value that you're supposed to plug in. Your iterations are supposed to be correct to 4 decimal places, and your root shall be correct to 2 decimal places. I've just told you people, fix your calculators. Fix your calculators to 4 decimal places. Just put the first value 0.75 and press an equal to. So that is stored as an answer in your calculator. Now make this entire formula in your calculator, sine inverse 2 upon answer plus 2. Instead of 0.75, we will put answer plus 2 and show one of the iterations. Please be very careful about it. At least show one iteration, and the rest you can just put the values. Press an equal to. Be very careful. Don't just keep on pressing the equal to without actually noting down the iterations. So what 2 iterations do you get the same value for? What 2 iterations? That is very important. Just can't use your calculator, get the answer and write it down. The question says give the result of
Sir, 8 and 9.
which 2 iterations?
8 and 9.
8 and 9. Okay. 0.7968, 0.7968. So what will be the root? 0.80. 8th and 9th iteration. 0.80 is your root, and 8th and 9th iterations are your same values, and that is when you stop, because your input and your output becomes the same, and that is what we call the root of the equation. Again, class, a very similar question. I'll urge you people to attempt it on your own. Chalo, jaldi se shabash. Leave this sketching for the time being. Balki chalo, let's do one that involves problem solving. June 2008 wala similar. Okay, class. In the diagram ABCD is a rectangle with AB 3A and ADA, a circular arc with center A and radius R, joining points M and N on AB and C with respect to the angle MAN is in X radians. The perimeter of the sector AMN. Now the question has provided you with the relationship. This is the relationship that will eventually lead to your equation. But the question is telling you that the perimeter of sector AMN is half of the perimeter of the rectangle. And now it wants you to make an equation, show that X satisfies the equation. This. Yes, class. How do we do this? What is the perimeter of the rectangle? 8A. Half of this, 4A. 4A is the perimeter of sector AMN. What boundaries are involved in sector AMN? Arc AM and arc MN, yes, and the lengths AN and AM, which are the radius, obviously, right? Radii. So we can say that the perimeter of the rectangle is 8A. Half of that is 4A. And the perimeter of sector AMN is R plus Rx, which is 2R plus Rx. Is this right? Right or wrong? Okay, this will help us in coming to this equation, which is sin x is equals to a upon r, how else can we find a ratio between a and r? हम कैसे ढूंढ सकते हैं ratio between a and r? Okay, very good. पहले ये बात समझो, यहां तक is this clear to everyone? Now the question wants us to make an equation only between x and sin x. R or A nahi chahiye, right? So we need another relationship between R and A, and the question is provided us with the hint that sin x आना चाहिए. If I just दोबारा बता देता, कोई बात नहीं. वही तो काम कर रहा है. This is exactly what we have done. Now have a look at this red line. The length of this red line is A, and this is R. So sin x is equals to A upon R, right? So we can make the ratio between A and R using sin x. And now we already have a relationship, which is 2R plus Rx is equal to 4A, and sin x is equals to A upon R. I can say that A is R sin x. Plug in R sin x in place of A. Take R common from both sides, cancel them out, and you'll get the equation that is given in the question. Sin x is 1/4 of 2 plus x. Do it on your own, and if you're unable to get to the answer, please let me know. Is this clear, class? Class, is this clear?
Yes, sir.
What about the rest? Is clear? Okay, now the question is provided us with the iterative formula. We don't need to make it on our own. We just need to start with the first value, 0.8. Yes. I'll show you. Don't worry. What step are you unable to understand? A is R sin x. So in place of A, we can just plug in R sin x. Is this clear? Take R common from both sides, cancel them out. And then 4 is multiplying over here, it goes over there and it divides. Is this clear? Now come to the iterative formula. It is already provided in the question. You just plug in 0.8 as the first value. Fix your calculator to 4 decimal places. Make sure the calculator is in radians. Find the iterations. Tell me that, show one of the iterations. Show the basic value putting in one iteration. And then the rest you can just write down the values. I'm waiting for your answers, class.
So 7 and 8.
7th and 8th. Good. And what is the root of the equation?
Zero 0.76.
0.76. That's fine. Is everyone else getting the same answer? Is this clear now? Yes, class. Is this clear?
Yes, sir.
I will attempt the questions on your own. And in the next class, we will discuss all the queries relating to this topic.